Well, let's talk a bit more about this story then. I'm pleased to be joined from Madrid by Stuart Turnbull-Dugarte. He's an associate professor in political science at Southampton University, where he does look into Spanish politics and societal issues. Thanks for joining us on the programme today, sir.
Thanks very much.
Pressure really mounting on Rubiales within the last 24 hours. Do you think he can survive this now?
I don't think there's any way for him to survive this. I mean, Spain is a country that's kind of marked by high levels of polarization between people of different parties, people of different ideological leanings. And whilst your report there mentioned there is a small amount of backlash, I think public consensus, both amongst the average individual on the street and amongst political players, is that his time is up.
If that's the case, though, how has he managed to remain in the job for the last week? He must have some base of support then.
I think that's also one of the major critiques that the government has faced from the Conservative parties, basically, who are in opposition, who have kind of critiqued the government whilst they support the idea of removing Rubiales from the head of the Spanish Football Federation. They've been criticised for being so slow in doing so. And I think this is because the government basically hasn't used lots of the mechanisms it has available to it. It kind of assumed that the Spanish Football Federation would kind of self-govern itself. But as we saw at the end of last week, when Rubiales came out at the end of the week saying that there was, under no circumstances was he going to resign, it's only then that the government decided to kind of up the ante and engage those different mechanisms that it has at its disposal to remove him.
And we're looking at images now of the rally in support of Hermoso that took place yesterday. And during that rally, the country's Minister for Labour said this story exposes the worst of Spanish society, in particular, structural sexism in the country. I wonder whether you'd agree with that analysis of what we've seen this past week.
I mean, I certainly don't disagree. I mean, the issue of sexism in Spain has been one that's been politicised for a number of years now, kind of demonstrated by this 8FM movement, which is a large feminist movement that's taking place across Spain. And the issue of sexism and misogynistic violence against women was also observed in the recent electoral politics that took place in Spain a few months ago when we had election. I mean, the Spanish government Prime Minister and also the kind of sitting Vice President of Spain have kind of came out very openly against sexism in Spain. It's kind of one of the poster issues that's attached to parties, largely on the left, but it's also one that parties on the right are also facing pressure on.
Given that then, and the fact that across the political spectrum there is broad criticism of Rubiales, is it fair to say that Spain's sort of feminist movement has made great progress in recent years and that Rubiales is almost a dinosaur who hasn't quite understood that times really have changed?
I think times are definitely changing in Spain, and this is kind of a poster moment for the country where they're able to kind of correct some injustices related to women's rights and feminism and the kind of lack of progress in women's issues. But the fact that, I mean, this is a large media event in itself kind of signals that there is a lot of work to do. I mean, just on Thursday and Friday when Rubiales came out and said he wasn't going to resign, when you look around the room in that moment, there's a number of high-profile men applauding in that moment that later have kind of had to double back on their positions and kind of come out to critique Rubiales because they realise that this kind of behaviour is no longer acceptable.
Stuart Turnbull-Dugarte, thank you very much indeed, sir, for your time on France 24 today.
Thank you very much.